Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today is actually a very special day. Today when I am filming this, it is September 17th, and on this day 2 years ago is when I officially got back into reading. I had, up until that point for a week or two, had been seeing a few fall and bookish recommendations on my book talk or on my feed, and I decided that that was going to be my motivation to finally get back into reading, because I had been kind of toying with the idea for a while, and seeing all those book recommendations and realizing that, you know, there are a lot more options of different like genres and levels of, you know, like coziness and things like that. I realized that this was something I really wanted to do, and as we can see, it has quite literally escalated into something I could have never imagined. So yeah, you guys like my new setup? I still have to like put stuff on the wall, and then I'm also thinking of adding like fairy lights like on my bed, which you can't see because my chair's in the way. But yeah, I love my new setup. Oh my gosh, this has been months in the making, and I'm very excited that these shelves are all put up. Everything is in its place now. Off camera, I actually have a red bookshelves, like all the books that I've read over here, and I am just so excited to just have this new setup. Like I said, there's gonna be more that will be added, like pictures and stuff like that, but for right now, this is what my background looks like, and I am so excited. Oh my goodness. Today, we are going to be doing something really fun in honor of my 2-year Bookaversary, as I like to call it, and we are actually going to be talking about my favorite books that I have read. And honestly, I'm not gonna call these the best books I've ever read, but these are definitely books that have stood out to me, and even though for some of them it has been several months, even a couple of years since I've read these, I still think about these books. I still love these books. I still have the desire to read them and annotate them, and I am like all about these books still, and I am so excited to talk about these books. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And yeah, my hair is wet. I did take a shower, so just don't worry about that. All right, so the first book that I have is the one that I actually do coin with getting me back into reading, even though it was not my first book that I read. It was actually my second book that I read. The first book that I read when I got back into reading, I was not a huge fan of. I was not a big fan of the plot or the characters or anything like that. And it made me very nervous because I was like, ooh, I have all these books that I want to read, and I've actually purchased a lot of them, and they're going to be coming soon, and I'm not sure if I even like want to do this because this book that I've read is not that good. Well, then I decided to pick this book up, and it really cemented that not only do I want to get back into reading, but this particular author was going to be one that I'm going to really want to read more of, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Yes, I have talked about this book more than once, honestly, I feel like, on this channel, and I love this. I finally have a physical copy again, because before, when I finished this book, I had given it to my mother, and that copy that I gave to my mother, I have not seen in 2 years. So I ended up putting a new one on my wish list, and someone actually gifted this to me, so thank you guys so much for doing that. I really do appreciate it, and now I don't have to worry about my mom giving her copy that she borrowed back to me. She can now keep it if she wants to. But yeah, this is a book about 3 different women, and 2 of them are from, I think it's the 1600s, 1700s, somewhere in that time period. Maybe it's even the 1800s, I don't know. And then our third character is in present day. And this book really made me realize I love more than one timeline, and I love multiple narrators. Like, this was the book that made me realize that, like, that is something that I really, really enjoy. And it also made me realize that apothecary is a career and a person, not a place. Because that's what I thought it was. I thought an apothecary was a place, and then I read this and I was like, oh no, that's actually what a person can do and what a person is. So you learn something new every day. But yeah, I love this. I love Sarah Penner. I have since read another one of her books as well as her short story, and I have an unread book on my TBR in over here somewhere because it's a hardcover. And yeah, she is my OG auto-buy author, and I am so grateful that I read this when I did, and that I did decide to give another book a chance after that first book was kind of a dud. And I just am glad that I have this back in my collection. And this is going to be, when I finish annotating my book that I'm currently annotating, this is going to be my next book that I reread and annotate, because it is time. It is time to dive back into this world, and I am so excited that this is going to be like, that I'm going to be reading this again, because like I said, it's been so long since I've had this book, and I love this book. I love it so much. Next up is a book that I really didn't think was going to be one of my favorites, but this has become my book that I need to read every year at this time of year, and that is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I have read this book twice, and I've already downloaded the audiobook so I can listen to it for a third time, because as you can see, I have already annotated this book. I read it physically the first time about almost 2 years ago, because I think I read this at the mid to late September, actually right after The Lost Apothecary. This was my next book after The Lost Apothecary, and then I read it again and annotated it last year, and I plan on listening to it in audiobook form at some point within these next couple of months, because I just love this book. And it's about a woman who goes through a bad breakup and moves to a small town in upper New York. This is the book that made me realize that I love a small town setting. I just love it, and like I said, this is like my go-to fall book, and this is a book that I know I'm going to want to reread over and over and over again every year at this time of year, because it is just so good. The vibes of the setting and the characters and the plot, everything about it is just perfect for this time of year, and I just love it. And I'm so surprised by that, because you know, I really enjoyed this book when I first read it, but it wasn't like one that like wowed me. And yeah, so goes to show sometimes a reread is exactly what you need to do. So speaking of books that I needed to reread in order to really appreciate it, I have the Witch Lore series, which right now it's a trilogy, but as of next week, I think it is going to be a 4-book series. And this is a series that I gave it a second chance. This is the first book. I first read it in October of 2023. And at the time, I really was kind of setting myself up to not like this book as much, because I was reading a lot of witchy books at that time, because it was October and that was like all the books that I was interested in. And so I was reading a ton of books that had like the same kind of themes and plots. And by the time I got to this book, I was like, I don't like this book as much. I still got the second book, but I was like, it's not really my favorite. And then in May of last year, I decided that I was gonna annotate it and reread it. And I am so glad that I did, because if I hadn't, who knows how long it would have taken me to pick up the rest of the series. And I love this book. It's basically about this group of witches who live in a fake small town in Missouri. And this is such a great example of friendship and being there for each other. Again, found family. oh boy, I love myself a found family book, and you will see that because I think there are a couple of other found family type of books in this video, but this is a book that just, I'm so glad I gave it a second chance. I'm so glad I picked it up again because it just was so much better the second time. And sometimes I think we need to realize that some books are just better when you read them again and you kind of know more about what's happening, you're more aware of things, because that was definitely the case for me. I have since then read the second book, and I am currently reading and annotating the third book. And I do plan on purchasing the fourth book next week, or pretty soon after its release, because I love this series. It is such a great series. I highly recommend it to anybody who loves a witchy romance and found family and friendship and anything like that. So please give this series a try. I feel like you're really gonna love it. Okay, so a lot of the books that I have in this video are like books that I read quite a long time ago, but this is actually a book that is an example of, I know that it's gonna be one that I'm gonna think about for years and years and years, because the moment that I read it, it just has stuck with me. And that is For Whom the Bell Tolls by J.C. Lynn. So this is actually a book that is based off of a TikTok series by JC called the Hell's Bells series. And it is basically a skit series that is about the front desk in hell. Basically about having a customer service desk in hell. And it is hilarious, and she decided to kind of create that world and that universe and those characters that she created from that TikTok series and put it in a book. And this is the first in a trilogy, and I'm not sure when the second book is going to be coming out. Hopefully it'll be within the next year or so. And I just knew. I knew when I read it I was going to love it, and it did not disappoint. And even though I didn't give it a 5 stars, I definitely feel like if I were to ever reread this, which trust me, it's going to happen eventually, maybe not this year, but eventually I'm going to reread this, and I will probably give it a 5 star because it is so good. It is so good. I cannot recommend this enough. Even if you've never watched the Hell's Bells series, even if you've never even been on TikTok, this is such a great book for that, because it is actually setting up like the main character of that series and her backstory and, you know, her love interest and other characters. And it is like such a great way to get introduced to this world. And I love it. And the writing is fantastic, and the humor is wonderful, and the spice, it is so it is definitely my spiciest book that I have read so far, for sure. If you want spice, read this book, because my God, you're gonna be satisfied, dear Lord. But yeah, love this series. If you haven't read it yet, do yourself a favor and read it. I love it, and I know that even though I just read it in January of this year, I am going to just absolutely just fall in love with it over and over and over again, and it's going to be one that is going to stick with me for a very, very long time. Well, this is another book that I actually read very early on, and I actually read it as a book club, and although I'm not a member of that book club anymore because it went off of the app that I was originally on, and I was not able to access the new way that they were doing it. This is a book that just kind of solidifies that sometimes having a different reason to read a book, like a book club, makes you find some of your most favorite books, and that is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I read this in November of 2023, and I absolutely loved it. It is so good. It's been nearly 2 years since I've read this book, and I think about rereading it constantly. And honestly, if I had the brain capacity to read books way faster and annotate books way faster than I do, I would totally reread this again in a heartbeat. But I can only take so much and read so fast and read so many books at the same time before my brain is fried. So yeah, this is about a woman who has a favorite childhood author, and she gets invited to be a part of this game that he has set up where the winner of that game actually gets a copy, the only copy of his last book that he will ever write. And again, found family, if there is found family in a book, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it, and more than likely it will be at least a 4-star, if not a 5-star. Although I'm pretty sure every book that I've read that has found family has been a 5-star read for me. So yeah, and I honestly wonder, like, if that book had not been our book club pick, if I would have read this like any time afterwards, because I don't know if I would have. I feel like I might have picked it up eventually, but I feel like if I hadn't had it as a book club pick, it probably would still be sitting on my shelf. And I'm so glad that I was given a reason to read it when I did. And this is just such an amazing book. And I loved the setting of it. It's on an island. And again, kind of like that small town, you know, kind of in the middle of nowhere kind of feeling, which I am a sucker for. Found family. This was right up my alley, basically. And I am so glad that I read it, and I need more people to read it because it is amazing. And yes, I do have Meg Schaefer's other book. I have not read it, and I know she has a 3rd book that's coming out very soon, next year, I believe. And I know I need to read her other book, but I will eventually. But yeah, read this book if you want found family, if you want cozy, if you want a game but not like trials like the Hunger Games. This is a great book for that. Read this book. So this is a book that is kind of the opposite of what happened to me with For Whom the Bell Tolls. I read this book first, and then I found the author on TikTok, and I found the skit series that she created that inspired this book and what ended up being the series that it is now. And I love not only this book, but also that series and that author. She is hilarious, and that is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Meyer. I love this book. I've read it twice now, and I need motivation and a reason to read the 2nd and now 3rd book of this series because I haven't yet, and I know that I need to, but it's amazing. This was a very popular book when I very first got onto Book Talk, because I think it had just come out when I very first was getting back into reading. So this book was everywhere. And so I decided to read it, and I read it in November, once again, of 2023. And at first I gave it only 4 stars because there were parts of it that I was like, I don't know if I understand what's happening, like what's going on. And then when I reread it, I was like, this is amazing. I have no confusion. This is a 5-star read. So again, sometimes it takes a reread for a book to become 5 stars, and that is definitely the case. I also annotated it as well because I annotate all of my rereads, and it's amazing. And Evie Sage, that's how I say her name. It could be Evie Sage, but I call her Evie. She, to me, is the most relatable book character. I feel like out of any book character that I've read, she is the one that I feel like I am the most like, in terms of her sense of humor, her kind of reaction to certain things, the way that she just kind of, her brain works. I feel like me and Evie Sage are like the same person, honestly. And I love her. I love this book. Again, I know I need to read the rest of the series because I am the worst at continuing a series. We all know this, but this book is amazing. This book is fantastic. I do have a Kingsley plush up on my bookshelf, if that tells you anything. Like, I love this book. And I also love Hannah's TikTok, and I'm so glad that I found her skit series that inspired this book series. and it just made, especially the reread, so much more fun because I now had like more of a visual representation of like what was going on, and that was like amazing. And I love this book, and I still think about it so often, and this is definitely going to be a book that's going to stick with me for a very long time, and I just need to read the rest of it. Why haven't I done that yet? Ugh. So like I had mentioned before, I was a part of a book club for about a year before I ended up having to leave that book club, and this was actually the very first book that I read when I was in that book club. And one of the things that I always loved about that book club was getting to see everybody's reaction to that book, getting to see their predictions, their excitement, their worry, their questions. Everything about that was just so much fun. And I have tried to do a book club before, but I haven't been able to really make it work. Maybe I'll try doing it on another app, but we'll see. And this is a book that I have thought about rereading so many times, and it was the very first found family book that I ever read, I'm pretty sure, and that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And yes, I do have her next book, which is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, and I definitely do plan on reading that eventually. But how can I not talk about this book? It is one of those, like, you know, everybody talks about it kind of books. But there's a reason I'm still like this, but especially at the time, I was so scared that I was gonna be like the one person on like my bookish like page, like on bookish social media, that was gonna not like this, because it was so hyped up, it was so beloved, especially when I was reading it, like, or before I read it. And I decided to read it, and I read it with a book club, and it was such a wonderful reading experience. It was amazing because not only did I enjoy the book just in and of itself, but I also really enjoyed getting to see all those other people and their reactions to the book. So again, I might try and bring a book club back, because like I said, I tried to do one like over the summer and it just didn't really work out. So maybe if I try it like on a different app or just in a different way, maybe I could make it a little bit more successful, but we'll see. But yeah, I love this book. There's been so many things that have already been said about this book. So it's found family, it's sweet, it's funny. The characters are amazing. This was also my very first book with a spice scene. And my grandmother was right next to me when I read it. You can only imagine how awkward that is. Yeah, that was an experience. But I love this book. Like I said, I always am thinking about rereading it. Whenever I'm thinking about which book I want to reread next, this is always like a top contender because I just love it and I need it back in my brain. And yeah, I love this book, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have already read it, but if you haven't yet, read it. This is actually the book that had me hit my reading goal last year. I had a goal last year of reading 50 books. This year it's 52 books. And this is the book that actually was my 50th new read of that year. And within the first couple of chapters, I was like, this is going to be a 5-star read. And I don't have that thought process very often of like only a little bit into the book where I'm like, I love this book. It's going to be a 5-star read. This is going to be like one of my favorite books. And in this case, that was definitely what ended up happening. And that is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I have talked about this book on my channel before. It's about a girl who somehow, some way ends up in the fictional town of her favorite book series through crazy events. And it's made for people like us, honestly. People who love to read, people who've always dreamed of just like diving into their favorite books. You know that sound on TikTok where it's like, let me in, it. That's this book. That is basically what this book is. It's just such a fun way to like kind of live through a character. And what I also loved about this book was the fact that this character is also a very complex character, as well as a lot of the other side characters, because with it being set in a fictional town that is based off of a book series, it would be very easy to make the side characters especially very one-dimensional, very like just, you know, like thrown to the side. But honestly, every single character that I met, I knew them, I knew their story, I rooted for them and whatever they were going through, I adored them, and I just was in love with this whole premise and this book, and I loved the fact that I hit a goal with a 5-star read, because this was definitely a 5-star read. And I love that I got to experience only a couple of chapters in, oh, this book is going to be one of my favorites. This book is going to be fantastic. And I love it. I do have a lot of Ashley Poston's other books, and I do plan on reading at least one of them, probably within either this month or next month. And I love it. And this also made me realize that sometimes reading just a true romance is not a bad thing, because for some reason, when it comes to romance, like, I've never been one that has just gravitated towards like a romance. You know, I've always gravitated more towards fantasy or thriller or fiction, you know, and if there's romance in the book, you know, like that doesn't ever bother me. But for me, it's like I always have a hard time going into the romance section and just picking up a book where the romance is going to be like one of the main plots, which is weird because in a lot of these books, there's a very main romance plot. This has made me realize that I do enjoy romance books. It may not be like my go-to genre. That would definitely be more fantasy for sure, but you know, if I do pick it up, I know I'm gonna enjoy it. And this was definitely a book that I enjoyed, and I will definitely reread it, and I will definitely like love it forever. Even after that one part towards the end of the book, if you know, you know. But I still love this, and I'm very excited to read more of Ashley's other books. So this next book is a book that I give it the title of the one that has gotten me the closest to crying. I have yet, in the 2 years that I have read 108 books in 2 years. I have yet to have a book that has made me cry. I've had some close calls, for sure. But it just hasn't happened yet. But this book has definitely been the closest. Like, there were definitely a few tears that could have happened. Like, I could feel like them trying to form. And I've talked about this book quite a bit on this channel. But I have to include it in here. It has made me absolutely love this author. I have now purchased so many books by this author, and I just love it so, so, so much, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I love this book. I've talked about this book, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but just know that this book is going to stick with me forever. I love it so much, and I feel like, you know, this is a book that it just makes you feel. It does. And to me, like, this is one of the few books that I have read that makes you do that. You truly, truly feel everything that Addie is going through. You feel her highs, you feel her lows, you feel everything that she does. And I love that so much. And there was a certain part with another character in this book that I was very close to crying. It was very close. And I wonder if I would reread this again, that if I would actually cry. Or if they ever made like a movie about this book, I could probably shed a couple of tears. For sure. But yeah, I love this. I love V.E. Schwab. I have read another one of her books, and I have so many more in my TBR that I plan on reading eventually. I love this book. I love this author. And if I were to ever meet V. Schwab in real life, I would love it. And I would pass out from happiness. This last book that I have here, it is my newest, the newest book that I have read. I read it last month. And it might be kind of weird to put it so, put it in this video, considering it has not been that long since I've read it. But I just have a feeling that this is going to be another book that just sticks with me. And I knew that when I finished it, number one, that I needed the second book immediately. And I just now purchased it today. But also that I knew that this is going to be a book that is just going to be fantastic. And even though it was not a 5-star read, I definitely believe if I were to ever reread this series, or this duology technically, that I would totally probably give it 5 stars. And that is What the River Knows by Isabel Abanez, I think is how you say your last name. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. I love this book. I just talked about it in my wrap-up video, which is the video that I posted before this one. And I loved this book. I loved the main character. I loved the side characters. I loved the plot. I love the twist, the setting, everything. I loved everything about it. And this just kind of goes to prove that a book doesn't necessarily need to be a 5-star read for you to love it and remember it and to have it stick with you. Because although a good chunk of these books that I have picked have been 5-star reads, a lot of them are not. There are several that are not 5-star reads, and they have things that, I may not be a huge fan of, but they're still books that are going to stick with me for so long. And this is one of them. And yeah, it hasn't even been a month, I think, since I finished it, but I still love it. And I still, it's making me want to pick up the second book, really, really quickly, especially after the epilogue. It wasn't even a full page, and I was like, what? I need it. I need to read it. And for a book to make me want to read a second book that fast, because as we all know, it takes a long time for me to continue a book. It takes me a very long time to pick up the next book in a series. So for me to be like, I want to read this very, very soon. I need to have this next book read quickly. I think that says a lot. I really do. So I love this book. I will definitely be reading the next book very soon, hopefully. And I need just more people to read it. It's amazing. And I just loved it. I really did. And again, just because a book is not a 5-star read does not mean it's not going to stick with you. Those are all of the books that are honestly, as of right now, my favorite and ones that have stuck with me even in the 2 years that I have been reading. And I know that there's going to be so many other books that I will be reading that are going to be just like that. I'm kind of thinking of making this an annual thing where every year on the anniversary that I got back into reading, I will make a kind of updated list of my favorite books of all time. So we'll see though. But yeah, if you haven't read these books yet, please read them. They are fantastic and I cannot recommend them enough. And with that being said though, I hope you guys like my new setup. Again, I will add, more, visual things eventually. But yeah, I hope you guys have an amazing day. And I cannot believe it has been 2 years since I got back into reading. It's crazy. Because in a way it feels like I've been reading for 10 years. I've been back at it for a decade. But at the same time, it also feels like it was just yesterday. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.